I was disappointed that I wasn't able to listen in more on with my zoning meeting on the one on the 25th. But I have that on the agenda to discuss. There are two other items that we're going to go into tonight. One of them, and I don't know if you saw the emails that I sent out. Nicole, who'll talk about this and explain where she got it, got a hold of this report, uh, Sustainable Connecticut. Apparently, it was something that was done back in 2018. We certainly were never provided with it, but it was very interesting read, uh, only because it had statements in there like Woodbridge has an abundance of mixed housing stock. So when I first read it, I was wondering whether or not they were talking about Woodbridge, New Jersey, or Woodbridge, Connecticut, given the research that we have done. But it's interesting to read, and it has an enormous amount of valuable information, of background information that we need. In addition to that, um, uh, Kathy, I think, and she'll talk about this, was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and they are requesting input from boards and commissions, including ours, on an RFP for Woodbridge Country Club. So I'm going to go into the discussion of the October 25th and see what everybody's feelings are about it and what you took away from it. I'm going to begin it with something that Chris forwarded from David Loper, who I believe is he a selectman?
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
Yeah. So she forwarded the email to all of us, which was interesting. I mean, and what I think it was a way to tell us again that I don't know how to put that rental properties are not exactly what it's favored, but why don't we focus on home ownership? And and it's an interesting comment because I don't want people to think all we're focused on is rental properties. We're focused on a broad range of housing that has to be in the housing plan. And but I thought it was nice of him to comment back and give us his position on it, and his statements were true, and have to be part of our thing. So with that, I was not at the. Again, I was there. I was listening whenever I could, but unfortunately, my zoning meeting stretched out quite longer than I thought. So, Kathy, if you don't mind, I'll start with you and turn it over to you to start talking about that meeting and begin like a debrief. And for those that were at it, I'd like to hear their opinions as to what they thought was accomplished by the presentation by David and the responses of the board members. You're on mute. Okay.
Okay. I'm just having all sorts of problems tonight with technology. But in terms of the presentation, I thought he did a really good job of just hitting all the high points of, what needed to be told and how to present, the need for housing in Woodbridge. I think he just, in terms of how to engage with the community, I think he gave a lot of background and education that we need to when we go out and start talking to residents. We have this information that we need to explain what we're doing and how we're doing it, and that it's really to provide opportunities for people that are already here on Woodbridge or are already working or are part of Woodbridge that would like to be part of Woodbridge. So I thought he did a pretty good job, and I was particularly, impressed with all of the different range of housing that he presented from all different towns. So I thought he did a good job in just answering any question I think any resident would ask, having an answer for something.
Was there any feedback from the other boards, or did they just listen? Anybody that,
Yeah, I mean, there were some questions, but I think they basically listened. Um, I'm trying, I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'm sure some people could remember some of the questions. Um, but there might have been a question on the myth of increasing student populations, and then he explained that. I mean, he explained that, in like smaller rental apartments, you don't have that situation. If you're going to be building the larger houses with 5 bedrooms, yeah, you might. That's where that situation might come in, where you have more school children. But I think for the most part, it was a listening session, and I thought the questions were pretty thoughtful. And I think he provided the right responses, at least responses we could go out there and start using for people that we're talking to.
I hate to sound like a cynic, because I'm usually an optimist, but I thought David did a good job. I thought the board wasn't engaged. I mean, I thought I was surprised at how few questions there were, and that he was really pulling teeth to get those questions on top of that. I was a little disappointed in that.
Yeah, Lou. Oh, sorry, Kathy.
I was just gonna say, I thought the same thing, and that's why I asked Chris if she could just do a follow-up email to folks, because I wasn't sure that maybe they were just kind of hesitant of speaking in public because of their respective roles on their commissions and committees. And so Chris did reach out to everybody that attended and said, hey, if you have any questions, if you had a afterthought, please let the committee know. And I guess that's where we got the one question from David Lober.
Yeah, and I think just to jump on that, I think, and I may be mistaken, but I believe it was David Lober who actually engaged the most during the during David's informational session. So it kind of follows that he would then, of course, respond to any email that was sent out by Chris. I think that, as Kathy said, he did discuss the myth of the school issue and asked a lot of questions about that.
I thought one thing, Dominic, that was very helpful was David presented a lot of examples in different towns like Darien, Avon, of what affordable housing could look like. And I think, they always say picture's worth 1,000 words. And I think, when we do have public sessions, maybe those type of photos will help, clarify to some people about the misconceptions of what affordable housing looks like. So I thought those photos were excellent. He did, exactly what everybody's been talking about. He had an example of, how many students add to the school system from 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments, and 1-bedroom basically nothing. I think 2-bedroom had maybe 1.0 and maybe 1.5 for a 3-bedroom. So there is a big misconception, as we've been talking about, how many students will be added to the school system with, 2 and 3-bedroom units. But I thought overall he did a great job.
I think that's important, I think, to take away from the fact that when we go to the public, later on in the agenda, when we start talking about our December 2nd, I believe it is, meeting, that those pictures, those examples of the housing, because I think there are a lot of people out there that still have the concept that affordable housing is Father Panic Village. When affordable housing, I mean, a great picture to them is to show them, for instance, an Avalon project and apartment, and tell them, now I want you to pick out the affordable units in there. Of course they can't. I mean, you can't tell which one's which. There's no difference in them. The same thing goes with single family ones. You know what I mean? They're all the same. You're not doing them. And so I think that obviously when David's presentation, that was good. And that's something we need to talk about. I did, in the trying to listen to both, I could tell that there didn't seem to be a lot of engagement by the boards and commissions. And I think they were probably a little gun shy on this as far as doing it. Hopefully they will change. Hopefully they will be part of the public at the December 2nd meeting, which we'll talk about how we're going to present that and how we're going to get some more engagement. With that, and this sort of jumps into this. If you have it, I know it went out late today, but this ties into some of the things you said. Nicole, why don't you explain how you came about with this, finding this trove of information?
Well, I actually the chairperson for the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Property, and we had a meeting about a week or two ago. And Sheila McCrevin is our Board of Selectmen liaison on the committee and on the commission. And part of the commission is to report on, the housing committee, because of course that could utilize publicly owned property as a possible location of affordable housing. And as I was discussing it in my brief synopsis of what we're doing, Sheila brought to my attention that back in 2018, a lot of the informational gathering that we're doing at this time was actually already done. And so the report that was sent to, and I asked, I said, really? Because that's news to me. So she said, oh, I'll forward it to you. So she did. And that's the report that was forwarded to all of you guys today that I sent to Dominic. It was apparently, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I looked at it is that there was a Sustainable Connecticut workshop back in July of 2018. And that was based on that workshop. I think one of the documents that we have is almost like a checklist of a to-do list of what we should do to make a plan of this nature. And there was at some point in time an ad hoc sustainability committee in the town of Woodbridge. The chairperson was John Gorham. And that is the report that we have now that was distributed to everybody. And it's within this report that it essentially, and I'm quoting this from the document, this report that analyzes the data and describes implications of the housing data for Woodbridge housing in the future, which is pretty much, data that we need to compile. So, I'm sure some of these numbers have changed, obviously, since 2018 to today. I don't know, but it certainly is laid out in a manner which I envision our report is going to be. So I wanted to make sure I forwarded to Dominic. And so it was Sheila also that I think worked with that ad hoc, or in conjunction with the ad hoc sustainability committee, with that report as well, from what I read.
It is, again, it contains a lot of interesting data. It was done, I guess, to get some sort of a qualification certificate of whatever. There were a few things in there that I thought were a bit of a stretch in the way, it's you can do things with words. It talked about the fact, if you're reading through here, that Woodbridge has Woodbridge has a wide spectrum of housing unit types, including single-family, duplex, multifamily, and mixed-use units. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, using the words wide spectrum. It talked about the fact that we got a lot of points because we have an affordable housing district, which was passed in 1996, and of course has never been used or anything or whatever. We just have those. It talks about the number. But when you get into the housing data profiles, and I didn't get a chance to read through a lot of it, there's some really interesting things in there. I mean, there was one interesting thing that really caught my eye about the school system. And I've often said to people, people have said, Amity High draws people into town. And of course, my thought was, if you're focused on Amity High, well, and Woodbridge does have high taxes. You can live in Orange. You can live in Bethany. And there's one paragraph in here that was fascinating. In 2018, not that long ago. But when you looked at the statistics, what it said on school children, which impacts housing, it said that Woodbridge expected between 2020 and 2030 a 2% increase in enrollment, whereas Orange expected a 0.2% decrease or 2% decrease or 0.2%, whatever the number was, and Bethany a 0.9% decrease. And I've heard that, Bethany's, and it was interesting to look at the comparisons because overall, and it's interesting, school enrollments are going down substantially. And that's what's creating some of the issues. But also there's a great thing about how old the town is, how the town is getting older. The number of the statistics, the number of families living in town, the number of singles living in town, the number of it's fascinating information. We're not going to go over the whole thing, but regardless of their outcomes and they're getting a certificate, the point is this is a great deal of valuable information for us to be able to take a look at, and also information for us to absorb when we answer questions at the public time. I mean, again,
Right. Yeah. And Dominic, like one thing I thought was very interesting too was the housing action plan they had at the end of it. It's interesting how even though 3 years have passed, right? I mean, nothing has really been done in terms of the plan to address affordable housing. I mean, updating zoning regulations. Okay, that was updated. So we did have that was recently done, but it says, revised village district designation, consider usage on the Country Club of Woodbridge. It's the same things over and over again that keep popping up here. But the action plan I thought was very, very interesting as well.
So this
Well,
is
I think it's a
2018. Sorry.
Yes.
This is pretty dated in terms of the
Well,
statistics that you're referring to, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't this what the SCROG is supposed to be getting us updated statistics along these same lines?
It may be. I'm assuming this housing data, data profile came from Partnership for Strong Communities, which is the entity that David worked for.
And they put that out
David
of
Fink
the
worked for a good number of years. So that's where the information came from in 2018. I really, and again, I really just had the chance to skim it today. I really don't think a lot of that data is going to change when you're looking at it now. But it provides us, again, with a tremendous wealth of information, but also, as you're reading through it, you can anticipate answering questions to the public, when they bring things up. It was a very, very, I think, great resource for us going forward, for information.
Dominic, they had a section in there where they were referring to public comment on this issue. I couldn't follow, again, I didn't look at it, with a fine tooth comb, but it's interesting the way that it's laid out. Maybe someone could tell me that maybe read it in more detail, but that they were responding to concerns that were brought to their attention and were that's how they were laying it out. There were certain issues, and they also had specific public comments in there they were referring to within the plan.
I didn't get to that.
I don't remember that happening. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
Did I miss something or?
When I was asking about the statistics, that in the same email that you sent out, Dominic, there was an offer for a link to an FAQ page that the SCROG has provided on this for each individual community. And that has statistics, details that I thought were very interesting and worthy of attention. We're going to need to follow up on those statistics if they're current.
And I
Well,
just,
if anybody can, I encourage you to read through it and get your opinions. I think it's an important piece of information, and even the information, obviously, we'll be waiting to hear from the SCROG on what their reports are, their statistics, but also their reports on our surveys. I think I'm not sure. I haven't seen. Chris may have seen an update, but as of a couple of weeks before the end, we were number one in percentage of response in the town, rate of response. So we'll just have to see what type of information. Hopefully we'll be getting that soon. And that'll be an update. But before we get to that,
Dominic, I just want to just piggyback on the data. because the Partnership for Strong Communities, they do update that data. They have a data profiles link. So if you go to the Partnership for Strong Communities, you go to the data profiles, they have updated data. That's very useful.
All right, well, it would be a useful link for us to get, for everybody to have, with respect to that, especially as we go into the public thing. Kathy, at that point, why don't you explain this thing about what happened at the Board of Selectmen meeting and
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting. I was alerted by Mary, who said, hey, the Board of Selectmen just made a pitch to run this by the Housing Committee. So then I went and I listened to the meeting, and it was interesting because I guess what happened, a couple Board of Selectmen brought forth an RFP for the town to put out to use, it was to develop, to buy and develop 5 acres around the clubhouse, develop a clubhouse, restaurant, banquet facility, for a minimum price of 500K. And so they wanted the board to pass this, to have this RFP go out. And so there was discussion on that. And then finally, someone had said, I believe it was Sheila Krevin had said, that this, we need to hold off on this RFP, and see, since the Housing Committee is doing work on this, we need to see what they say about the use of the Woodbridge Country Club. So, I mean, I just thought it was interesting that they were trying to, the two selectmen were trying to push this RFP through.
Just to interrupt real quick, I don't think it was the selectmen who were trying to push the RFP through as much as they were presenting an RFP that I guess there were 200 some odd signatures from residents that got funneled up through those selectmen. So I don't want them, I mean, obviously this is all public record. I don't want to misspeak, but I don't think the 2 selectmen that brought it up were the ones who originated that RFP. I think they were sharing it on behalf of a group of residents and all of these petition signers.
Well, I got the sense they were advocating for it in a way.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they created it, is what I'm saying.
is
Right,
that
no,
part-
well,
yeah.
it wasn't created by them, but they wanted to
They
bring it
presented
out.
Yeah.
Is that part of the petition that's supposedly been going around
think
to
it was a few months ago.
maintain Woodbridge Country Club as open space?
I think it's related to that, yes.
Okay. In other words, develop it into a banquet facility, and whatever, and then leave the rest of it open space. In other words, 5 acres around it and leave the rest open space. No development. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen some letters to that effect. I mean, if we're gonna present, I mean, they can't, hopefully they're not gonna rush things. But if we're gonna present an RFP, we need to discuss it as a committee and possibly form a subcommittee to
But
do it.
yeah, they didn't say, I mean, that wasn't the exact charge. It wasn't that they wanted the Housing Committee to develop a RFP. It was more of, we'd like to hear input from the town committee in terms, from the Housing Committee in terms of the use of the land. So that's why I was wondering if there was any official correspondence to you in terms of what the Board of Selectmen was charging us with.
I've gotten no official correspondence. I mean, I will, if we're gonna give input and for discussion, since this is sort of in my wheelhouse, I do land use, this is the kind of thing I would say to them that might come from us. And again, this is for our discussion. And one would be to propose as part of it, that there would need to be a change to the zoning regulations to adopt a planned development district type of zoning, which can then be put onto a parcel like the Woodbridge Country Club, and give the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, a substantial amount of control over the development, and yet give flexibility. you would want
Dominic?
to, what?
Can I just interject there? They already have a zoning regulation that allows for multifamily housing where there is access to sewer and public water, which
Right.
that has.
It's not a PDD, and it's very limited. And it would, honestly, it would not, developers would take a look at it and would shy away because of the density that they're proposing in it. I'm talking about something, I'm just telling you, this is the kind of things that would go into it. There would have to be a variety of housing stock, not including anything greater than 3 bedrooms, a limit, and imposing a limit of bedrooms that would have to be mixed of single-family cluster townhouses and rental units, because you'd want the broad spectrum of it. 20%, which is what they already have in their affordable units. And here's where it gets sticky. And you may have gotten this when we made the presentation, or we listened to the presentation from the other people. They have to pay for these units. And when there's affordable units, they have to pay for them in the density. So in order to get affordable units and a good amount, you need to increase their thing, because they have items, as you remember, I talked about the fact that, so you're gonna have to factor into your housing the cost of demolishing the clubhouse, building a new clubhouse, and doing the pool and everything. So I feel that something like that, there would have to be a minimum of 200 units. And honestly, I don't think there's any benefit to taking developers in an RFP and telling them we want the clubhouse and the pool redone or something, just get rid of it, and not focus it on taking away from the housing stock. I think that with Woodbridge Country Club, the RFP should include the fact that they must propose development to the topography, reducing the amount of site work. And it's something that developers can often be asked. They should be required to have open space buffers in the RFP on Johnson and Fountain Street. So in other words, if you look at Woodbridge Country Club, the development would mostly face Woodruff Road, in other words, where the clubhouse is, and face out that way. And if there are natural buffers, they create the natural buffers along those houses. There's plenty of room to do that. And then there are other things that we could throw in, in trails or anything like that. But that's like a bullet list of what you would say of what we want as a housing committee. Now, I'm just throwing that out for everybody to understand. That's, if they want our suggestions, from my perspective, this isn't, that's the kind of thing that I think they would need to do. Because, for example, if you try to satisfy every group that has an issue, you're not going to do it. I mean, and one of the things that I think is, in my opinion, and I'm welcome to listen to everybody else, is completely frivolous out there, is when you're talking about housing, you don't want them to have to spend money on a clubhouse and a pool. They have to spend money taking it down. They shouldn't have to spend money building it back up. I don't think we need those public amenities. But that's my feeling, and I welcome any other thoughts about how, we go forward on that.
Dominic, do you want me to contact the Board of Selectmen and ask them specifically to write out what it is that they're seeking from you? I don't know that it's an RFP, or if they're just waiting to see what your recommendations are with the plan that you're preparing.
It would be helpful. I mean, Kathy seems to be saying that they want input from us. So I think it would be helpful if they want input, if they would give us at least an outline.
Dominic,
Okay,
I
I
think,
will make sure that I forward that request to them tomorrow.
I think Mary's been trying to say something because
Yeah,
she also was
yeah.
on this meeting.
What they were trying to do, well, let's leave the other RFP completely aside. That's irrelevant here. What the Board of Selectmen needs from us, and I think we need a motion, and I think we need a vote, and I think we need it carefully worded so that it's clear that we're not telling them what to do, and that we're not ready to give them a recommendation of any specifics. We want them to hold off doing anything, proceeding in any way with making plans, any specific plans for that property,
Yeah.
That's really all we're prepared to tell them right now.
Yeah, and Mary, that's what we did in my committee, my commission, actually, exactly what you just
Right,
said.
exactly.
And
So they
Sheila
need,
McCrevin, yeah, Sheila McCrevin was there. And, you know, we were all of the opinion and moved to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to not take action on any proposal at the Woodbridge Country Club until our report is complete. I mean, that's basically, I think that should be where we stand until we're ready to submit that
I think
report.
I think they've just sort of didn't think about that, and they need to be made to think about that.
Mhm.
They gave us this charge. We can't perform it. I also think it's very, very important that if it's possible, that we word our communication to them to make it clear that we're not just looking at the Country Club of Woodbridge property. We're looking at everything. We're still listening to everybody. We're considering the best package. And inasmuch as that may include some recommendations for the use of that piece of property, they shouldn't preclude those recommendations by making decisions or even suggesting that they're making decisions right now. In all of these public meetings, they are in some ways very helpfully coloring people's minds. They're being shown nice pictures of things that are multifamily housing, and that's never a bad idea, to let people see things that look like everything else in the neighborhood and are technically multifamily housing, and to hear all these, possibilities. But otherwise, it's doing us harm because it's suggesting that, that we're farther along than we are, that we've got a suggestion that that people are going to have to put their dukes up to fight this on top of, we don't want them to fight anything. We want them to have their ears and eyes wide open to possibilities.
Mary, I think you're right, especially because there's such a large group of residents who are opposed to any type of development on that piece of property, that if we're given the time to really be thoughtful on a recommendation, I think it could appease the residents who are okay with development and appease those who are against development, at least by hitting pause for a little while.
So it's time we need. Well, I'm looking at all the things we have to do just between now and December 2nd, and I'm having a conniption fit. I don't know how we're going to do that, much less get a specific proposal.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to make this a specific vote. I was thinking these are the kind of things. I mean, and I agree with you. We should tell them to hit pause. I was taken aback by the front page. Not the small white piece of paper or newsletter that we get. I don't know what that one's called. I forget. Whatever.
The newsletter.
The newsletter. There you go. The newsletter. The front page of it was an advocacy for their proposal, and by getting the 9 million, we get the 9 million, we get rid of the debt, and that will help our taxes. And so I think maybe that article was written before everything else is folded out. You know what I mean? So, I don't really know the point, but I think that when we convey it to them, Mary, it's a good point that we need to convey to them that we are looking at all the options in town, but we also need to make it very clear that the Woodbridge Country Club is one of the options we are looking at amongst everything else. And that they know that and take a pause on it, and we're doing our homework, and we're doing it. But I think, Chris, it would be helpful if you can get to put some meat on the bones as to what they were talking about at the meeting about us, because they did mention, right, Kathy, and Mary, they mentioned our committee, right?
Can we do that? Can we have a vote tonight? Can we have a motion and ask that, express our
Well,
opinion?
I think what we can do, certainly we can have I think there seems to be a consensus that we ask them to hit the pause button until we do our work. Is that pretty much the consensus of everybody? So I think the next thing,
Well, can we have a vote?
I mean, we can try to
think we're-
draft.
I think we're supposed to vote for FOI, isn't that right?
You can do things by consensus. You don't have to vote on everything.
Yeah, you don't have to vote on a consensus or anything like that. If we're gonna have a motion, I mean, I know we can't wait to the next meeting, but what we can do is generally outline how we want to respond, and then we can draft something that fits what we've talked about to correct it. I would like, but I think it would be helpful if we had something that came from the selectmen as to what they want, and then we'll give them our response. But I think what we're hearing is our response is, we want you to get, we would like the selectmen to take some
delay
time.
taking action.
Yeah, not take any action on any proposals with respect to the Woodbridge Country Club until we have done our work and come up with a report concerning housing, because our charge, remember, and they forget this, some of them forget it, our charge is not just on affordable housing, but it's also on the housing stock in the town. So when you read our charge, it does include that, types of housing. So I think we can phrase something like that. And I mean, I will check with FOI. I think once we agree on that that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to send. Certainly, we can put it generically in the form of a motion, second it, and vote on it. And then once the final draft is done, I think we can submit it to all the board members for any comments, corrections, etc., before it's sent out.
Can I just say about the voting?
Wait a minute, guys. I think you're pushing this way too far in terms of, I think it's much simpler to be able to do this. I can send Beth an email and ask her to clarify what the Board of Selectmen talked about regarding the Housing Committee's input on the Country Club of Woodbridge, and note that the committee is respectfully requesting that the Board of Selectmen put on pause any action regarding the Country Club of Woodbridge until such time as the committee's report has been adopted.
That's good.
I mean, if that
Are we all
satisfies
agreed
everybody,
with
that's
that
just a
consensus?
request to them coming from us, you know what I mean? And we don't have to send them anything then. And see what they respond to that on. Hopefully, we will get a response.
Yeah,
we-
thank you, Chris.
We're currently in the
And
process.
at whatever I get back, I will feed out to you ASAP.
Okay,
Well, I'd prefer to have it on the record, but
It will
I'm
be
not
in the
trying to do that.
minutes for the evening.
okay.
I think speed is the most important thing here, although I would like to get them on the record about it.
It will be in the minutes that was a consensus of the committee.
Because I think they need to understand that the SCROG is in the process of analyzing a lot of data. And I mean, I think we can make a general response that this is a prime, piece of property that could be used for housing opportunities. But in terms of like really determining what configuration we like to see there, I think that should be data driven. And I think, the SCROG is in the process of doing the market analysis and the demographics and coming up with what the housing need is. And I think if you could substantiate what we would like to see for that property with the data, I think it just would make for a stronger case.
Well, plus the fact we haven't done our survey yet.
Right,
We haven't had our public meeting yet.
right,
I mean,
right.
those are two of the key elements in how we're going, and the two elements of the wheels of our train, so to speak, as we're going. And I think, I don't know, Chris, if you need to put that in the email, but I mean, I think that generically, that's one of our responses is at this point, we're now getting to the two, probably the two most significant pieces of data gathering as it relates directly to Woodbridge, the public and our own survey. So, all right, we'll send it out, Chris. We'll see, what type of response we get back.
Okay, and as I say, as soon as I get any response back, I will forward it out to all of you.
Next thing on the agenda is the SCROG survey update. I know that Chris sent out an email that why am I drawing a blank on his name? From the scribe, huh?
Eugene?
Eugene.
Lipschitz.
Eugene picked up everything. Chris, do we have a final set of numbers on?
We haven't gotten anything from Scrog back as of today's date.
Did they update the responses?
I haven't gotten anything from them since the last thing that I sent you.
Okay,
Yeah,
All
I
right,
did
so-
touch base with Eugene today and he hasn't gotten the updated responses yet, but he will send those out. But he thinks it's, at this point, it's, higher than what we had. So overall, I think that was like 720 or something. So overall, we're having a great response. And I think I think even this survey is going to be pretty telling. Will give us an indication as to how people feel about, affordable housing.
yeah, we were slightly ahead of Madison in percentage. They were slightly ahead of us in number, but we were slightly ahead of them in percentage. So I think that's a really, to the outreach committee, to the survey, everything, we did a great job. And you all ought to pat yourselves on the back, because I think it was a fantastic thing. And it also points out something that we have to keep in mind, which is apparently there's a lot of interest in what we're doing. And now we've got to take that and move to December 2nd. And I think, based on the fact that the last email that came out of Woodbridge was that we are gray, and by gray, I don't mean we're getting older. I mean, that's the color for not having whatever
Okay,
the number
Dominic?
is. Huh?
What I've been told is that you'll be able to, as long as we remain in gray or yellow, have in-person meetings as a committee, but there is no determination yet on a larger meeting in terms of the public, because I specifically asked that knowing that we were going to meet tonight. So they're going to be chit-chatting about that, and as soon as I get a response back on that, because we have to be able to publicize this correctly, I will let you know. But as it stands right now, they're not going to let us have a public meeting in the auditorium because of lack of circulation, ventilation, something like that.
I just let them know I'll volunteer to bring the big fan I have,
That's what I was thinking.
I'll be glad to bring it along, because I really think, something is better than nothing, but for what we have to do, it's really better to sit there, being able to look out at the people and have an appropriate exchange. All right, well, then we'll wait to hear from you on the action. The first item was the setup, if it's going to be in person. Obviously, we have to wait for that. Publicity and outreach. Any suggestions on things we should get started? We are approximately 1 month away. We are 1 month away right now. So are there any suggestions as to what other things we should get out there? Well, I guess maybe we're hamstrung if we don't know, unless we want to put it out that that's the night for a public gathering, and it's going to be either in person or in a WebEx format.
I think we should have a save the date, at least, so people know to schedule this time, whether or not it's virtual or in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there should be a save the date, but I think it should be scheduled as a WebEx. And if there's an in-person component, that can be determined later. But I think you have to pick one way to start advertising. And even if it is held in person, there's going to be people who don't want to come in person because they're not comfortable, or because it's cold and dark out, or whatever their reasons are. So I think if you start promoting via WebEx, if there's an in-person component, that could be tagged on later.
Chris, have they done any hybrids?
I don't know that I can check with Pua, because Pua's here. I'm not aware, Pua, you chat in with us. I'm not aware of anything that we can portably
Can
bring
you
to
hear me?
the auditorium that would allow for a hybrid.
I can't hear you, I'm afraid. Hang on. We had to do something different with our audio, and now I'm getting an echo. Okay, only Woodbridge Board of Ed tried hybrid meetings, and it was a disaster. Too much echo. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
The hybrid meetings that I've been at, they can be, they're working on them because I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of municipal municipal attorneys, land use boards are thinking of but possibly going, there's a survey out that was sent out to all the land use attorneys for us to comment on how the hybrids are working. The couple that I've been in, probably the best one that was run by was Oxford, but they had someone managing their small TV, I'm sorry, their small computer screen, and then you have to have somebody watching constantly, so when a member of the public is able to come in, and then the way it was done, because it was in a large auditorium, they spoke to that person, and that person conveyed the question, and then later on they got it so at least you could hear them. So yes, there are issues, but I do think maybe that, Debbie's makes a good point. Maybe we advertise it, as that it, at this point it's scheduled to be a WebEx, public gathering, and or at least save the date for it. I mean, I think in a prayer meeting we decided it would start at 7:00, correct? On the 2nd would be the appropriate time. And what the newsletter and everything like that, are we okay to, is there an ability to get that into the front page of those, or?
So the newsletter goes out at the first of the month. So depending on postage, you could be right on time, or if it's slightly delayed, it may arrive to mailboxes after the event. But that's a question for Betsy Yagla, because there's always such a small amount of space available each month. But I'm sure she'd put it in. And I don't know off the top of my head the deadline for the Woodbridge Town News. Should be right around Thanksgiving. But again, you know, when you have an event the very beginning of the month, you're always kind of rolling the dice on the postal system.
Mm-hmm. Mary, you were saying something? You're muted, Mary. Mary, you're muted. You're muted. Okay, now you're not. Okay.
Was trying to tell me something, which was do not say anything. No, I was just going to remind everybody that we have an outreach committee, and we went through a lot of this in the outreach committee, and we have a budget for this. I don't think that we have identified a designer for a flyer or anything like that, but some of this work has already been done. And I don't know whether you want to do this as a committee of a whole, or if you just want to turn it over to a smaller group or a set of smaller groups to work on in person, perhaps.
Well, again, if the outreach committee has done some work on it and is ready to go, I think the outreach committee can continue to process it and get it out. I mean, I think the other places we talked about is on everybody's Facebook, anybody's Facebook thing. We need to get it into town hall. We need to get it into the senior center. We need to get it into the library. And, it would also be nice, what also would be nice if, I'm sure there are people that listen to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance. I don't know, does Planning and Zoning have a meeting in November?
It would have been this past Monday, and they didn't have one, and their meeting in December is not until the 6th.
Well, the point being that when maybe a request could be made to any of those boards and commissions that have a meeting. And especially if they're having it in WebEx, for them to announce at their meeting that there is this upcoming, we can give them a little blurb to say that there is this upcoming public session by the Woodbridge Housing Opportunities Committee, and to please put it in their calendars.
We could also ask Pua if she could run a banner on the TV station.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Another thought I had is that, because the housing survey is done, so we could take that down from the town's website. And maybe we could put up an advertisement for this public comment session. And also, when Eugene sent out the last email, he included a short, like 4-minute video from David Fink that talked about the process as maybe a little teaser to get people interested in engaging into this process on December 2nd. So maybe we could also incorporate his video along with a flyer to get people excited to attend this session.
What do they call those things for the movie, the trailer?
The trailer.
David Fink's trailer for I mean, absolutely. I think that would be a great idea. I mean, every opportunity. I mean, we showed it could be done with the Scrog thing. Yes, Deb.
Chris, is it possible to use those sandwich boards that get placed around town? And who prints out those oversized
As long as
posters?
somebody else isn't using them, I can verify with Public Works, who has control of the boards themselves, if they're available, and then we can print the banner or whatever. And then I believe Beecher, this becomes a very collective effort, can laminate them. So we should be able to do that. I will check that out for you tomorrow also.
Okay. Oh, so you have the capability to do that oversized printing on site. That's great.
Yeah, in our own little room down here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, those sandwich boards. I mean, Old School is great, over by the cornfields or by the big 4-way stop intersections. I think those are still valuable.
Where we normally put stuff up. Yep.
The critical thing is the poster, is what we're going to put on it, how it's going to be designed, and then we just plaster it everywhere, right? But we don't have the poster, we don't have the wording. How do we get that?
Well, we have to have limited verbiage on the big A-frames because you have to be able to read it from a car.
Right. I'm thinking about, Facebook, email, what we did with the survey. We had a poster, we had a visual that we could post up on things and pass out to people and email the folks. And that's what we need. We need that piece of.
Well, let's talk about what would go on flyers or what would go on things that we would pass out. What would, I mean, I think the top should say Woodbridge Housing Opportunities. Start with that, so that we are identified, the committee is identified at the top. I mean, second line would be public information session or something, or I don't know. What suggestions does anybody have for what language would go on a poster? We can put the posters all around. We could ask a lot of the businesses to put it in.
I want to continue to use the Scrog, what do you call that, graphic, the little houses? Or do we want to have something different?
Well, I don't think we should use a picture of the Woodbridge Country Club, so.
I like the houses, but I think they're associated with that. I'm worried that they're associated with that survey that so many people hated, and I wouldn't want them to think that they were going to be subjected to that stuff.
Those houses need close together.
I don't think we need a pictorial. I mean, we could.
Oh, I think we do.
We could have something related to Woodbridge.
I think we should use that. I'm being a joke. I'm joking, but I'm joking and I'm not joking. I do think we should have a graphic. And that's pretty nice. So I would suggest we continue to use it.
Dominic, what if we said, give us your input, that line like that?
All right, or we need your input, or something, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, or be a part of it. I mean, that's what we want them to be. We want everybody to be part of this.
Like
You know what I
have
mean?
voices heard or something like that, or
Yeah,
something that's positive like that, have your voices heard or let us know your position or
That's more for the survey, though. Um,
That
for a
was
public
our,
informational session.
December 2nd, it's mostly information, isn't it? I think.
no, it's mainly information, but there's got to be a time for them to respond, to ask questions. It can't be just a talking to their face. You know what I mean? That's a
No,
TV
yes,
show.
Right,
There's got to be some give and take.
like the
that,
BOS.
or yeah, but maybe you're right. Because it is. What are we about?
So learn about housing opportunities and have your voices heard or something like
Yeah.
that, something short and to the point.
I mean, as far as graphic goes, I'm not the person to talk to about graphics. When I was a kid, I drew stick figures. So. But you know what I mean? I'm welcome anybody that comes up with graphic ideas. That would be good. I mean, something, and then we can certainly disseminate it. I mean, I think Jim made a very good point. Like, for instance, once we do that, then we need to put a sign up. We need to have, if we don't have the sandwich board there, we need to put a sign up at the dump. And try to leave the sign up at the dump. We need to have,
it's not a dump, it's a recycling center.
excuse me, the recycling center, the transfer station.
Don't-
There you go.
There you go. I'm
Didn't
sorry.
we put money
It's
in
a
the budget?
transfer station.
Yeah,
Didn't we
You
put
have
money
a
in the
grant.
budget for a designer?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, do we have a designer? Do we know a designer? Anybody know a designer? Since we can pay them?
I'm sure somebody out there knows a designer.
I
you're
would
talking about
almost don't-
something in graphic arts or something of that nature, or
Somebody who's got, all the things that they need to have to do what we need to have them do.
Well, the thing that you might want to consider is saving some of your money in case, because your survey is coming up quickly in January. For your survey, maybe you want to try sending out a postcard to every home saying with the information for that survey, and use some of the grant money that you have to get that information out in the mail to every home.
Well, I think you're making a good point. We need to be really well aware of how much money we have and what we budgeted for things. I think it's possible we budgeted for both of those things. But we really should check. You're absolutely
yeah.
right.
I mean, we should go over that, but I do think, I mean, whether we go with graphic art, I think getting the word out, getting stuff on the internet, getting stuff on the website, getting the sandwich boards out, getting flyers out, getting something at the transfer station that goes up there. I mean, there's do they still have, I'm trying to think, Jim may know. They used to have a big storage container that is on the opposite side from all the bins. It would be a great location, a great wall to put up a big sign. You know what I mean? That, talked about whatever we're going to put on it, the public information session. And then that sign could then go from there to the survey when the time comes from the survey. And so I do believe, that these are the kind of options. I mean, I'll defer to the outreach committee and everything like that if there's anything else we need to do. But a lot of that stuff can be done relatively in-house. You know what I mean? All we need to do is apparently provide the language. So the question is, what are we going to put on the flyers? So we can have a talk about it tonight, or we could assign it to whoever, on the outreach committee to come up with an appropriate, input from everybody with an appropriate saying or catchphrase or something like that. Because we want them to know we're going to have a presentation, learn about housing, and we want your input. Those are the bullet points. Now, how does that get on a flyer? How does that get on a sandwich board? How does that get on a sign at the transfer station? How, meaning, what is the best way to word it? So those are, any other suggestions? And we just, can the outreach committee take it and run with that, get it to Chris in time? I mean, we would want to target this stuff getting out when?
Yesterday.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was exactly gonna say. Oops.
okay,
I mean,
Yeah.
could we also use the different email distribution methods that we used? I know there was, I know Chris sent out.
I
you know,
can do that. I've been working on using what you've been saying, and I can send out a suggestion to all of you when we're done with this meeting, and then you guys can tweak it as much as you want, and then I can send that out to everybody that I sent it out to the last time.
Right, and then you could probably even copy like that, a video, that, the trailer. of-
Right, if we get that video link for David's short thing from Eugene, we can add that in.
He sent that in the last email. You have to read down, but the last email he sent you.
I get a lot of emails from a lot of different things.
Yeah, I'll just send you the link.
Thank
Make
you.
it easier, okay.
okay, anybody else on the, any other issues on the second at this point?
Yeah, Dominic Dwight, I just wanted to let you know that the joint boards of selectmen and finance will be meeting that night
Mhm.
for budgets. So there will be people going to that too as well. Just wanted to let you know too.
Okay,
So
that's a good point. I mean, and I assume, well, we don't know yet. Chris, you think those will probably be in-person meetings?
At the moment, I believe it's WebEx.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be in person, Dominic. I think right now, I think the rest of the meetings for this year is going to be WebEx, from what I understand.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think that there's any, I mean, there are members of the public that will go to that, but the housing is a big issue anyway too. So I think we should be able to get a good response to people attending ours, hopefully.
And then the earlier you can get the message out, because you got Thanksgiving coming up.
Right,
You got people going away, and everybody starts getting ready for the holidays. So the earlier you can get it on the calendars, the better.
all right. Do you think we need to have I mean, our regular meeting would be the day before, which only gives us one day. I mean, I guess we can call a special meeting if people need it, but I would think we would still have our regular meeting on the Wednesday before to be able to discuss what's going to go on the next night. Anybody have any comments about that?
You all need to do your homework and read all those things that you've been distributing amongst yourselves.
Yeah, Dominic, I just have something to add. Tim Austin, who is on the Conservation Committee, he's the head of it. I don't know if you're aware, but they've created a property profile tool that they've already adopted, where they have identified the properties within the town of Woodbridge. And I actually have a list of all the properties owned by the town of Woodbridge and what their classifications are. For example, if there's a conservation restriction or no restriction, things of that nature. And he did indicate to me, and during the committee meeting, that he would be willing to speak with us about that tool. And, it's their hope that it could be a tool that can be shared amongst committees for information sharing, which obviously can sometimes become an issue. So I think that may be something helpful that we can use down the road when we're looking at all the different properties available potentially for this project. So if you want to keep it on the back of your mind to invite him to come talk to us, he's willing.
Yeah, and it would be great if he could get the tool out to us before he comes and talk. I mean, it's not something we'd want to do in the next month, but certainly
Right.
That's part of the thing. And the sooner he can get the tool out to us, that would be better.
That reminds me, Nicole, we don't have that many more months to go.
I
Right.
know.
We
So
really
I can
need
try
to
to
be
get
on
that out
top-
to everybody.
We need to be on top of all of these things more or less simultaneously at this
Right.
point.
And we need, the next big thing after this public meeting, and we need to start working on our own survey.
We
So,
need to start working on our survey right now.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
so there'll be something like Mary said, we should be simultaneously,
Yeah.
looking at these different issues. I mean, that's only gonna help us identify the properties that
Well-
could potentially be available
Yeah,
with no restriction.
so I do think we need to have the meeting on the day before the public thing. And I think at that point, between now and then, besides reading as much of this information as you can absorb, I think it behoove any of us to come up with our own ideas as to what questions should be on the Woodbridge survey.
Because you need to have that survey ready to go so we can turn it in and get it into whatever format you're gonna have, or determine what survey company you're gonna use to do it.
Yeah,
I-
and that's not something, I'm gonna have to rely on
I'm
somebody
happy
else.
to tell you that the survey committee's already done that, and we've already discussed all those things, so we've got a leg up. Doesn't mean it's done, it just means we've got to go.
So whatever information the survey committee has, it would probably be beneficial to get it out to all the other members. So at your meeting on December 1st, you can discuss that, because then you wanted that survey to be out in January.
I sent minutes of that meeting out. I could send them again. I don't think they have any details about the specific questions that we were looking at. We should probably get together again and
I
make
think
our
the specific questions are what you need to be focused on at this stage of the game.
We also want.
Have you decided, I mean, I know we talked about what is it, what platform we're gonna use?
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, you did that, so, and we have the money in for it. And so then we need to know what the procedures we need to go through to line up that platform to.
Because if it's
sign.
over $200, I have to get a purchase order done.
Right. Because there's certain, remember that, we're a committee of the town, so there's certain procedures we have to go through in spending even the grant money. Okay?
Also, I think the thought was that we wanted our survey to also be informed by the SCROG survey, because we might probably get some information from there in terms of how people are feeling. And then we could build off of that as well to dive deeper into what people's, feelings are and thoughts are.
Right, but they haven't set any target as to when they're gonna get our answers, their data to us, right?
Okay, well, I think they said it's a relatively quick process, so that just ended, well, on Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think they said it was a pretty quick turnaround, so I would think by next week we're gonna have some results.
okay.
And also the input from this new report that was sent out today. I know that there's a lot of fact gathering in that as well. So
Yeah.
maybe incorporate that within the survey as well, because that's very specific to Woodbridge,
Right.
which, as we know, is one of the main complaints of the original survey.
All right. Anything else that somebody feels we need to bring up right now?
Are there still restrictions in terms of the committee's meeting? Let's say the survey committee wanted to have a meeting, there has to be some sort of formal,
Agenda.
Well,
Yeah.
subcommittees still need to notice it. Survey committee or some, you still need to notice it.
That's just 24 hours. That's not too bad.
Yeah, right. Just 24 hours notice. And I guess, Chris can set up the WebEx or Chris, really at this point, if they wanted to meet in person at City Hall, they could do that, right?
They're confirming that after the updated color status comes out on Thursday for COVID.
So if it's gray, it's gray to go.
If it's gray, you can meet in person.
Right. And Dwight and I are already gray, so. White, We're actually beyond gray, we're white.
I'm white. I was gonna say I'm white, not gray.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, thank you all very much. We have a motion to adjourn, if we want to formally have a motion to adjourn, or, which not necessarily is needed, but everybody's got their own tasks. And remember, start thinking about, what questions you think ought to go out. Hopefully, we will get the SCROG information as quickly as possible. It will get out to us so we can do that. And at your leisure, peruse the information that was sent out. If you'll notice, in addition to what Nicole did, I sent out two things that I had picked up and put together, which was an article about, which is going to become a big issue, an article about accessory apartments and the fact that the towns, a lot of the towns can opt out. Are they going to opt out? What are the problems? But also, I sent it out with the page in the Woodbridge zoning regulations where they changed it relating to apartments, because Woodbridge still has the requirement that they have to be part of or attached to the house.
No,
What?
they
No?
changed that October 1st.
Oh, okay, then,
It can
What I
be in
had
a
was-
detached building.
okay. So, and that's an important step, because that's something that's going forward is something that can actually be very beneficial to creating an additional housing stock. So I'm glad they did change it. What I was using was what they had passed as a result of the,
That was the September 7th.
right,
October 1st, they changed it again.
good. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. There's nothing else. Have a good night.
Question.
Take care.
Oh, yeah.